So either he somehow recursed Rika, brought her back, and now he just has Rika again along with his curse technique and his boundless cursed energy, and he is the crazy powerhouse that we saw at the end of Volume 0. Or this was quite the chapter. So the Shibuya arc is officially over, and we're setting up the new arc with this chapter. And with that, it's fleshing out the fallout of everything that happened in Shibuya, where I guess essentially Japan is falling apart right now. Like on this first page of dialogue, it literally says like a political void, a literal void. The yen is losing value, but aside from that, apparently not less than 10 million cursed spirits have been released as a result of what Kamo did in the previous chapter, I suppose. So now that that chaos is going on, they essentially are trying to evacuate like 5 million residents from the city. And another crazy thing that's being discussed in this walls of text that we're getting in the beginning of this chapter, them possibly making the existence of cursed spirits public. I mean, they haven't yet, and I say yet because it seems like this might actually happen, which would truly be insane. And considering the way that all of this stuff has been talked about, especially lately with like what Tsukumo was talking about in the previous chapter, it's very possible that this might be a future storyline in the series. But another interesting thing that's mentioned in all this TLDR stuff is that considering, you know, Japan is such in a vulnerable state right now, during a power vacuum at this scale, foreign military intervention is a possibility. That might happen. We might see America or another superpower come into the fray at this point. Again, going back to what Tsukumo was talking about in the previous chapter, like how Japan has a monopoly on cursed energy and cursed spirits and all that stuff. You know, other superpowers, America, is mentioned in the previous chapter, so it's a possibility that, you know, they might come over. And that's also an avenue to just introduce a whole bunch of new characters, foreign characters, which would be pretty interesting. Don't necessarily know if they're gonna have cursed energy, but still interesting nonetheless. But anyway, just the first couple pages here is just establishing that everything is not looking good, just for Japan as a whole, for the jujitsu world. It's all kind of just crumbling at this point. But anyway, it cuts to like this little girl in like this mart, and she's being stalked by like this cursed spirit, and she's about to get like eaten by it. And then out of nowhere, Okkotsu shows up and stabs this thing in the head. Yes, Okkotsu has finally shown up present day in the story. This is amazing. I'm sure a lot of us speculated that this was going to happen. I mean, I know that I was thinking about it, considering they're like, okay, the Shibuya arc's over at this point, Gojo's gone, a couple characters have been nerfed, a couple characters died, so it's about time that Okkotsu, or at least Hakari, comes into the story at this point. And little did we know, it's the next chapter Okkotsu is showing up here. And yes, as expected, he's making short work of this cursed spirit, who is probably not special grade like Okkotsu is. One of the 4 special grade sorcerers, let us not forget. But then something super interesting happens after this. The cursed spirit that he had stabbed is like coming up behind him as Okkotsu's talking to this little girl, and it's just wiped off without him even reacting to it. And he's like, Rika, please try not to overdo it. So what's going on here? If you read Volume 0, you'll know that Rika is no longer kind of in the picture at this point, or at least that's what we assume. And even a couple chapters back, Kamo in Geto says that, like, you know, Okkotsu can't be the next Gojo because he doesn't have Rika anymore, essentially. Meaning that he wouldn't be able to use his cursed technique and his boundless cursed energy. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's what was implied of it. But apparently from this sequence, that's not the case. So what's going on here? I don't know. It hasn't really been explained. So either he somehow recursed Rika, brought her back, and now he just has Rika again along with his cursed technique and his boundless cursed energy, and he is the crazy powerhouse that we saw at the end of Volume 0. Or he's in some kind of in-between zone where maybe Rika isn't necessarily existing, but he does have a grasp over his cursed technique, and he refers to it as Rika, and maybe he's gone a little crazy or something. I mean, obviously we don't know what's been going on with Okkotsu while he's been in Africa or wherever he's been overseas. It's possible that something changed in him, you know? And also that could explain why he makes the decision that he does in a couple pages here that we'll just start to discuss now. So it cuts to Okkotsu talking to like the higher ups between like those screens that we've seen a few times before, and they're like, good work, Okkotsu. And he's like, oh, you don't really intend to thank me, so let's just get to the main event. Now you know I will obey your commands. The higher ups like, no matter how many cursed spirits you kill, it's proof of nothing. And then Okkotsu's like, maybe I should enter into a binding vow or something. But then he says, I don't care if he's Master Gojo's pupil. He cut off Inumaki's arm in Shibuya. I will kill Yuji Itadori myself. Wow, okay, that like blew me away when I first read this. I was like, okay, This is the twist. So first of all, let's just backtrack a little bit. Straight up confirming Inumaki is alive, but did lose his arm. Obviously, going back to Volume 0, we know that Okkotsu, you know, it has a strong tie to Inumaki. But now Okkotsu is straight up saying, hey, I'm gonna take out Itadori at this point. So what does all of this mean? So like I was saying before, you know, with the whole Rika thing, you know, maybe Okkotsu's a little unhinged at this point. Possibly, you know, maybe he's not like the Okkotsu that we've come to know in Volume 0. But as we've established, he still does have those strong ties to Inumaki. But Okkotsu is still a disciple of Gojo. He came up with him just like the rest of them. So it's like you'd think that he'd be siding with Gojo on the side of things, especially what we're going to be talking about after this. But I'm going to put a pin in this for now. But let's just also say that this could be a red herring from Okkotsu here. Maybe he's not literally going to try to kill Itadori here. Maybe he could just be saying that because he just wants to get deeper into the knowledge of things here, possibly. But we'll go back to that because now we've got a whole other slew of major reveals that are about to come. So we go into the notices from Jujutsu headquarters. It says, number 1, Suguru Geto's survival has been confirmed and he has been sentenced to death again. Okay, that makes sense. But the next stuff no longer makes sense because number 2, Gojo has been deemed an accomplice in the Shibuya incident and is thus permanently exiled from the Jujutsu world. Furthermore, removing his seal will be considered a criminal act. Wow, what another twist here. I mean, yeah, it's crazy to read that, but it also makes sense because Gojo has been telling us essentially since the beginning that the higher ups were super corrupt and all they wanted to do was retain and maintain the power that they had. And they know that Gojo was always against them. They know that Gojo is essentially unbeatable. They've always probably behind the scenes have actively been looking for ways to get Gojo out of the picture, and this is perfectly it. Geto/Kamo has done it for them, so now they're just going to twist the narrative and make things fall into their favor, which they are effectively doing here. So of course they know that Gojo is not an accomplice in the Shibuya incident, but they're just going to say that he is because they've always wanted him out of the picture, and now that he's sealed, they're just like, good, he's out, and if you try to unseal him, well then you're just as bad as he is. But another spin that they're executing here is putting the death penalty on Masamichi, saying that he was inciting Gojo and Geto for causing the Shibuya incident, which obviously isn't the truth. I'm pretty sure they know that as well, but they just want Masamichi out of the picture because, you know, he was in defense of, you know, Itadori from the beginning, and also he's boys with Gojo. So any other higher ups that are tied to like Gojo and that stuff, anyone that can impede on what we're doing, we need to get them out of the picture too. So that's why he's a part of this. And then number 4, they're removing the suspension on Itadori's execution and they're just having it carried out immediately. I mean, that's expected considering what Okkotsu just said, and that brings us to number 5. Special Great Sorcerer Yuta Okkotsu is appointed Yuji Itadori's executioner. Wow. So excited for what is to come. This is amazing. I mean, clearly we're going to get Okkotsu tracking down Yuji at this point, but it's like, is it a red herring? Does Okkotsu literally want to take him out? Is he just trying to figure out more? Is he trying to save Gojo? Is he trying to take down the higher ups by tricking them into thinking it? Or has he snapped? The Rika stuff, is that showing us that he's unhinged at this point? So many questions. Is Hikari going to come into the picture? What's Tsukumo doing now? Is Tsukumo now going to be Yuji's new teacher? I don't know. I can't wait for the next chapter. But let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. If you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe. If you haven't already, have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.